Привет, tovarishі! And today I should like to share another one of my greatest reenacting experiences, the time being when the Red Army held their line against the fascist foe to the last man and the last round. I imagine that would be a lot more impressive if this were an actual round. It's just a blank, but you get the idea. You get the idea. We held the trench. That's the important thing. Roll the intro. So the setting for this story was actually a tactical event, which is to say it's a private event, which means you don't have to worry about all the rules and regulations that come along with having a bunch of spectators watching you. And it's only for reenactors. There's no public. It's only for reenactors. And as a result of that as well, what they're able to actually do is, rather than have it be purely for display purposes where, it's predetermined, okay, this side's going to win that day, the other side's going to win that day, a lot of times in tactical events, you will actually have a lot more of a, like a role play type element, where you'll have judges, who usually have like walkie-talkies. It's a bit far being that way, but judges will actually go around with each individual group, and they will be communicating with each other, sort of distant from where all the individual units are going around. And they will actually tell you, okay, you took a hit, you took a hit, and you took a hit, based on their communications with all the other people. I mean, for example, if you have like a German sniper in a tree somewhere, and he has a perfect shot lined up on a Russian, he takes a shot. Well, odds are the Russian doesn't even know that the German sniper was there. He just heard a random gunshot, like, oh, what was that? So the judge can tell him, hey, buddy, he got you, fall down. It's like, oh, darn, all right, I've been hit. And you have to like go back to the line and recycle. It's sort of like reenacting and laser tag mixed together, if you will. So it's a lot of fun, and not terribly educational, not at all for, the public, because there's no public, but it's still a lot of fun to do. And, as well, there are these same honor rules of if you run around a corner and you get blasted with an MG42, oh yeah, I should probably take a hit for that. But anyways, that's sort of the setting that makes this story make an awful lot more sense, I think, with how I'm going to describe it to you. I should mention as well that it was at an event called Wrights, which is to say a gentleman, I think his name was actually Wright, owned a great deal of property out in Illinois, I think it was, private property, and so every year he held a private tactical Eastern Front event, and he allowed us to more or less do as we pleased. Naturally, there were some safety regulations, but things like digging trenches on his property, awesome, go for it. He was okay with us doing that, which was a lot of fun because we were able to, sort of expand on previous earthworks and make repairs when we were there, all that sort of thing. So the actual scenario, the actual story, I'm sure we want to get to that. So my group, the 50th Rifle Division is the group that I was with when I was out in Ohio. We were tasked at one point during the event with defending a trench on top of a very large hill in a more or less thickly, moderately wooded area. So, top of a hill, trees all around, in a trench. We were inside the trench, tasked with defending it. The Germans, on the other hand, knew that we were somewhere in that general direction. They knew that we were over that hill somewhere, but the Germans didn't know where we were, because from where they were underneath us, they're looking up, they can't see the trenches even there, and I'm sure some of them knew it was there from experience, but they didn't necessarily know that that's where we were. And yet they had to, their objective was, it was sort of like predetermined, okay, that's what the Germans have to do, that's what the Russians have to do. They had to advance over that hill and take some sort of an objective somewhere further down the way. We were defending the trench. I remember very distinctly, we were all, huddled just underneath, where the rifles are just being kept underneath the trench to not be exposed, and we're all, we're prepped, as it were, ready, laying into the trench there. I remember actually very distinctly listening and hearing the rustling of leaves and, the cracking of branches and the mutterings, sometimes actually in German. A lot of times at these tactical events, people who can will speak in the native languages, which is really fun. It's really cool. But I hear muttered talking in there. You can hear the Germans. They are coming up this hill. They're approaching. They're getting closer and closer and closer to us. It's rather nerve-wracking. I remember very distinctly, actually, looking over, at the sergeant, whatever his Russian rank is, sort of peering just over top of the trench line, his helmet like barely sticking over to study where their position was. I look over, And we have a gentleman with us who was actually, he's not portraying a Red Army soldier, but I think it was like a Yugoslavian partisan type guy who just sort of like attached to us, which is a really interesting impression. He was a nice guy. I look over to him and I see him finishing signing a cross, and he looks at me. Red Army, Christianity, tedious relationship at best. I look over at the sergeant, and I do a quick little sign of the cross as well, before, sort of like a knowing nod from the Yugoslav, and we both look back out towards the trench. Now, as the story goes on, we pass, a few more moments, silence moments pass by, and it seems to last forever, of course, when all of a sudden we have something of a silent signal from our sergeant. Get ready, get ready. And I forgot exactly what the word was, but he mutters something in Russian. He did speak Russian, which was also a great boon to the group. And at that point, all of us, all at once, we flip over top of the trench, and we take our ready positions, aiming down at the Germans. And in a split second after that, we get the actual command, "Going!" or however you pronounce it, and we start blasting away. Blast, go underneath, reload, up, blast, bang, underneath, reload, up, blast, bang, all that sort of thing. We start blazing away at the Russians as fast as we possibly can. At the Germans, of course. No, we weren't NKVD. No, we were blasting away at the Germans, of course. Of course, the ears are set immediately ringing with a Mosen Nagant, and without hearing protection, safety regulations a bit lax. Ears are set to ringing. The chaos, chaos of the entire scenario, and you hear just down below some more shouts in German. Gunfire starts coming back our way, and everything. And eventually, we push the Germans back. They retreat, and we're back over there. They're like, all right, we have a moment to relax. Reload. Put the stripper clip back in. Try and get yourself all suited. Clear up any jams, as it were. My gun actually was jamming an awful lot that day. Rim locking. Very, very nasty thing. I actually spent quite a fair amount of time out of action at this event because of rim locking, but that, makes the story sound less impressive, so we're going to ignore that part. So we lay for bed. All right, things relax, things calm. We take stock, didn't take any casualties. All right, we're doing good. How much ammunition do we all have? All right, very good, very good. A second time, the Germans come up. Second time, again, we fire off. The first one's always like a single volley because we're all firing all at once, and then it devolves into the individual or independent fire. As it is, actually, because I'm not wearing my glasses, I can barely even see a thing. I just see the woods, and I occasionally see like a muzzle flash or like a bit of gray through the tree or something, and I try and take my shot at that, just above that because reenacting. A second time, the Germans come up the hill, and they are beaten back. A third time, a fourth time, a fifth time they come up that hill. Every single time we beat them back. Of course, every single time the Germans do advance, we lose a little bit more ammunition. One or two of our men are told, you took a hit and you took a hit. They're out of action. Eventually, by the eighth time those Fascists advanced on our line, we were down to quite a little skeleton crew, and we were taking ammunition off of our dead comrades all around us. An eighth time, we beat them back. On the ninth advance that the Germans made, we were down, quite literally, I was already dead by that point, we were down to the last man, and literally, the last round. We had nothing left, or at least very close to nothing left, and the Germans overtook our line. With that one last, shot out or whatever, I remember very distinctly leaning back in the trench, and I was just about to look over top to see what was going on, how close they had gotten, if we had beaten them back another time, and all of a sudden, jumping over top of the trench, a German lands in the trench, and he wasn't exactly in the most prepared position. He probably should have had a knee tool ready or something like that, but he actually tripped on one of the boards and almost fell straight into the very mucky, filthy, very high, actually, water that was at the bottom of the trench. My first words to him, not terribly dramatic, it probably should have been something along the lines of "Smiec fascisti!" I should have grabbed a knee tool and tried to get him or something. No, my first words were, "Oh dear, are you okay?" But you get the idea. German leaps over the trench, is in there, and all of a sudden, all around us, we have other Germans running up. Some of them are at the trench, they're pointing the guns down. Other ones are jumping in as well, you know, like their comrade. And at that point, it became fairly obvious we had lost our line. The Germans had taken it over. But my God, it was an awful lot of fun being able to like tell that story, you know, later on. And in all fairness, I do readily and fully admit that I'm pretty sure every single time I tell this story, it becomes more and more dramatic. But you know, that's the way that it works in the mind. Is you build up these things, these stories, these ideas from these events, and it becomes more and more real, more and more dramatic every time. It's part of the fun. It's part of the mystique, so to say, that you sometimes actually get in the hobby. Those little moments that really just stick with you and ring true, and I do think give you something of a greater perspective on that life. Even if, of course, you can never truly, genuinely experience that life, it gives you at least a little bit of a better mirror, a better lens into that world. You know, I'll never forget that moment when I look over and I see the partisan looking at me, you know, distrustingly, and I look over at the sergeant who's distracted, you know, observing the Germans. And I sign it really quickly as well. That was just, it was so much fun. So yes, indeed, there we have it. Tovarishi, another excellent story, one of my greatest reenacting moments. The time when we, the Red Army, held our trench to the last man and the last round. Of course, until the next time, my dear viewer, Nishagu Nazad Tovarishi, and of course I am and I shall remain your most humble and obedient of servants.